All right, so once we decompose each object into different figures, we're going to find the volume of each figure. So you can see that I circled where I broke apart each of these rectangular prisms. The larger rectangular prism on the bottom we're going to call rectangular prism number 1, and the other one we're going to call rectangular prism number 2, or shape 2. So first, looking at this bottom shape, okay, once we find the area of the base, we're going to multiply it by the height, and that should give us our volume. So here we are going to be identifying our base. I know it's kind of hard to see, but we're going to call this top and bottom our base. So my base here is 8 millimeters by 20 millimeters. So I'd multiply base times height. 20 times 80 equals 160. And then the height, how tall is this rectangular prism over here? Well, it is 6 millimeters, so then I'd multiply it by the height, which is 6. 160 times 6 is 960 cubic millimeters. Again, we have cubic because this is a 3D shape. Shape number 2, same thing. I'm going to find the area of the base, then multiply it by the height. Now, the area of the base here would be considered, again, the top and the bottom. So here we have the top and the bottom. We can see that the first dimension is 8 millimeters. And then I have to figure out, what is this dimension here? Now, it doesn't exactly say right here. We know that this dimension is the same as this dimension, which, again, we don't know. But wouldn't this dimension be the same as this dimension here, which would be the same as this dimension, which is the same as this dimension? So these are congruent, which means that these two are congruent, which means that these two are congruent. So if this is 8, then that would make this 8, which would make this 8, which would make this 8. So 8 times 8 would be the area of our base, which is 64. And then the height of this particular rectangular prism, this height right here, again, it doesn't really tell us. What we do know is that the height of these two combined is 16 millimeters, but that's including the bottom shape too. So I'm going to have to subtract 16 by whatever the bottom is to get what the top height is. So if I look over here on the left, I can see that the height of the bottom rectangular prism is 6 millimeters. So if this is 6 millimeters, that means that this is 6 millimeters over here. If the whole thing is 16 and this bottom part is 6, we would take 16 minus 6, which is 10. So that tells us that this specific height of the second shape is 10 millimeters. So I would multiply the area of the base, 64, times 10. 64 times 10 is 640 cubic millimeters. And in order to find the total composite shape volume, I would add these two together. So I'd add 960 plus 640. That gives me a total of 1,600 cubic millimeters. Down here at the bottom, your job is to describe how this process would apply to the object below. So here we have a house. If we were to try and figure out how much space this house could fill, or the volume, we would still find the area of the base times the height. But we have two different shapes here. We have a triangular prism and we have a rectangular prism. So first we would have to find the the volume of the triangular prism and add it to the volume of the rectangular prism. So your job is to describe that here. I'm not going to do it for you. Your homework, okay, are going to be these three problems. Yes, all three, okay. Each of them, you're to determine the volume of the objects below. Be sure to label all of the missing dimensions first. The reason for that is because if you don't know the dimensions, you're not able to solve the problem. I'll help start the first one. Number 3 says 3 steps are being formed out of bricks. The measurements are shown below. How many square feet of bricks are needed to form the steps? So if we're trying to figure out, this one actually is asking for square feet. So 3 steps are being formed out of bricks. The measurements are shown below. How many square feet of bricks are needed to form the steps. So square feet, ladies and gentlemen, you should be thinking surface area. Okay, so it's asking for square feet. That means square feet. That would be like this. So it's actually asking for surface area. So in order to do that, you're still going to have to decompose. So if I were you, I would decompose into this top rectangular prism. And if you can imagine this second rectangular prism, and then the bottom, the rectangular prism. Now think about below these steps, there's still brick. So you still have to count it even though you can't see it. If you wanted to redraw it as 3 separate composite shapes, you could do that and find the surface area that way. Okay, but they are 3 separate steps. If they were layered on top of each other, it would look like this. So you're finding the surface area for the first one, and that's the only hint I'm going to give you. Good luck. We'll go over it in class tomorrow. Goodbye.